Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we are going to talk about the fact that I let my pots stay on the bat until they release. I don't wire them off, and I know for a lot of you that's like a holy crap moment. I can't believe you do that, but that's what we're going to talk about, so let's go. All right, here we are. I walked in the door this morning just ready to start working on this Monday morning, and I saw the platter bowls sitting here and a couple vases that I made. I think it was Saturday when I made these, and I thought, you know what? Those are ready to come off the bat and sign and do the little bit of trimming that I do. And then I thought, you know what? I wasn't even planning on making a video this morning, but I thought, you know what? I've had a lot of comments recently, people asking me, when do you wire off the pots off your bats? I didn't see you use a wire. Do you let them dry on the bats? What kind of bats do you use? All these kind of questions. So I thought, you know what? This would be a great opportunity to show you when the pots come off the bats, what they look like on the bottom. I actually did this a little bit in a previous video when I did the tips and tricks on bats, so you can go back and check that video out as well. But I thought I'd just show you guys how I handle my pots when they come off the bats, and you know, what they look like and when they come off the bat. So anyway, that's what we're going to do here, and we'll get started. I hope this video is not too choppy today, but I've had a bit of a chest cold, as you guys can probably tell by my voice on the video. I can hear the difference, and that's me talking, so I'm like, yeah, I can definitely hear it. So if there's some awkward cuts and breaks, it might be because I had to stop because I was coughing. So we'll just leave it at that, okay? I knew that most of you have probably been trained. If you're into pottery already, you've probably been taught that you need to wire off the pots off your bats. There's a lot of different reasons for that. Sometimes the bats are not good enough to let the pot dry on. Sometimes there's not enough bats in the studio for you to leave your pots on the bats for a long period of time. So no matter what your situation is, I'm just going to show you how I handle my bats, my pots coming off the bat. And hope this helps you guys, and I hope you learned something out of this. All right, you can see all the platter bowls that I have here ready to sign, and I've got a couple vases as well. And I thought I would, like I said, show you guys how I handle that. And like I said, all these I can tell by the look of them that they're already released from the bat, and they're really, to me, at the perfect stage to lift off the bat to sign and do the little bit of trimming that I do. So I know I showed this in my previous video on tips and tricks about bats, but these are the tools that I use to sign my pots. I use a nail just because it's a hard metal object with a pretty good point. That's like a 16-penny nail, and then I use one of these knives to trim around the edge. You can use anything you want. I just know that I need something decent length that I can hold on to sign, and I need it so that it's not going to wear down too quickly. Because if I use like a pen or a ballpoint pen or something like that, those work fine, but they wear down pretty quickly after you sign a bunch of pots. So I will say this: if you're going to stamp your pots on the bottom, what I'm doing will not work, because by the time these pots release from the bat, they are too dry to stamp, but they're really perfect for hand signing. So that's why I do it this way. Alright, so one of the first things I do when I get ready to sign and trim is I get a bucket or a tub like this that I have my scrap clay in, and I sign and trim over that so that I can contain all those scraps and all those little trimmings, and that I can recycle that clay. So if I take one of my vases here that was dried on that bat, I can show you here the bat that I just pulled that off of. It's released and it's very clean. Like I said, one of the main reasons I can do this is because these bats are very smooth. These are the tempered masonite bats. I did not make these. I had a local woodworker that made these, and he's not making them anymore, unfortunately. So eventually I'm going to have to find another source of bats. But this tempered high-density masonite works really well, because if you don't soak it too much, you know, if you submerge this in water for a period of time, it would not be good. But just throwing a pod on it and then letting it dry on that bat is great, and it is smooth on both sides. I put a little bit of clay underneath this as I was throwing it, because that would help it stick to the wheel. one of the great things about these is every time I use it, I'll flip it over and I'll throw a pot on this side the next time, and then the next time I'll flip it over, and that keeps them from warping too much. So I think if you're going to use these kind of bats, it's really important to make sure that you find ones that are smooth on both sides like that. But you can see that the bottom of this pot after coming off that bat is very smooth. And that's one of the main things that I like about letting pots dry until they release from the bat is if you have a really smooth bat, you have this perfect, nice, smooth surface to the bottom of your pot, and you don't have to worry about you know, being rough on the bottom from being cut off the bat or anything like that. You can see a little bit of a lip right there from where, you know, I undercut and I clean around the bottom of my pot as I finish throwing it. But you can see there's just that little bit of a edge right there, and if I left that without trimming that, that would end up being sharp. So I'm going to hand sign this, and then I'm going to use that knife to go around and trim that little edge right there. All right, so on hand signing, I just used the nail, like I said, and at this point they've freshly released, but you can still see some moisture in the bottom of that compared to the top, and that's good because then you can still get a good impression in the clay with the nail at this point. That's hard to do in front of the camera, trying to hold it down, but there's my signature. Then I use the knife and I kind of scrape off around my signature, and then I just take this knife and I go around that edge just like that. And that's all the trimming I do to my pieces. And I don't sand them at all when they're green or when they're bisque unless I find a really rough spot. But I will sand these when they come out of the glaze kiln, and then they'll be ready to go. Pretty hard to get a bottom any smoother than that, however you handle it. And like I said, just from my years of experience, that's my preferred way to do it. Not that this is the perfect way or the only way to get this done, but to me, if you have resource to have enough of these bats that you can throw the pots and leave them on the bat until they pop off, even if you need to put handles on them. When I do my coffee mugs, I leave them on the bat. I take the coffee mug, I put the handle on it while it's on the bat, and then I let it dry until it releases from the bat, and then you can sign it and trim it just like that. All right, now on to these platter bowls, and of course, I want to be careful picking these up as you do with any bisque or greenware. But so a lot of times what I'll do is either grab the pot with two hands or pull the bat, pull the pot and the bat off the shelf like this. And like I said, you can see from the color of the bat, you can see from the color of the piece that it's got a little bit of moisture still in the bottom. One of the main things that you can tell is if I get this in a good enough angle, you can see that, you know, where the pot was thrown to on the bat and where it's kind of pulled back and released to. And you can just tell that it's dry enough that it has released from the bat at this point. So what I do with these, pick them up like that. Like I said, you can see where it released from the bat. Flip it over into one of my hands, and then I've got the nice smooth bottom. Some of this clay was a mixture of two different clays, and so you can see a little bit there where it didn't get blended quite perfectly, but I think it'll turn out just fine in the finish. But then like I said, just like the other ones, I take this, hand sign it, trim that, and these are a little bit trickier because I gotta hold this in one hand and trim with the other, and I never want to get too much pressure, especially out on the edge. The bottom is fine. And when I trim anything, I kind of go over it twice at a couple different angles there, so I kind of soften that edge a little bit. And then look in there and see if I need to fix anything else. And there we go. So this technique goes hand in hand with the previous video I made about throwing this foot on a pot, because I don't have to trim the bottom of this on the wheel. I can take this piece after it releases from the bat, and then I can just trim around that bottom side of that foot that I threw on the piece, and then I've rounded that edge a little bit, and it works perfectly with that foot that I've thrown on the bottom of the piece. Here's one that's not quite released yet. You can see it's just about there. You know, a lot of times I won't try to do that, but a lot of times if you just take it and spin it like that, if you pick straight up on it, it's not going to release. But a lot of times if you spin it, and don't do that very roughly, you know, don't handle it too rough, but if you just spin it, and if there's any point in there where it was attached just a little bit, like in the very center, then it will release very easily just by spinning it like that, and you won't mess up the bottom. Sometimes if they're still stuck like that, and then I go to sign them, they're a lot more wet, especially right in the center, so I have to be a little more careful about how hard I press when I go to sign them, but they still work out pretty well at that point. You can see the clay coming off is a lot more wet on this one than a couple of the other previous ones. Alright, there's one that is not ready to come off yet, so I'll just put it back on the shelf with the bat. And probably later today it'll be ready. Well, there we go. We got all the platter bowls and these vases signed and trimmed, other than these couple that wouldn't release from the bat yet. And hopefully this helps you guys understand why I do what I do with the bats and why I don't wire my pots off the bat when I'm done throwing them. And I have done that before, and it works just fine. But I have enough of these bats, and this is a process that I found easier for me in the way I produce pottery, to make these and leave them on the bat until they're released. And as I said in a previous video, I'm not a purist in the sense that I think this is the only right way to do this. If you're going to use a stamp on the bottom of your pot, or you're going to trim a foot into the bottom of your pot, this technique will not work for you. But I hope this does help somebody out there that says, you know what, I could handle my pots this way, and it will make it a little bit easier for you in the process of letting your pots dry and sign and trim, a little bit of trimming around the edge, that kind of thing. So like I said, I hope this video did help you, and if it did, share it, leave a comment, leave a like, anything that you would like there. And anyway, thank you guys as always for being here and supporting the channel, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks, bye. Oh no. Let's go. Today we are going to talk about, wow, my voice is rough. Then sign and trim it that way. Then and I do let them dry on the bat. And as I said in a previous episode on making the foot on the vase. Oh no, holy crap, I can't believe you do that, but I'm making this video to help you guys understand why I do it, and if it appeals to you, as you guys have seen on the videos. And all right, here we are. I'm getting ready to all right, then where you all right, welcome back into the studio today. No, you don't say that. Blah, 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 blah. I'm talking way too much. Woo! You know, that's the artist side of me that, oh man, my voice is sounding rough today. All right, here we are. Welcome back. No, you already said welcome back. I have enough of these bats that it works.